Dear students, welcome to Department of Collegiate Education, Digital Learning. This is Ramesh GK, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, Government First Grade College and PG Center, Sheddegatta, Chikballapura District. Today, I am going to explain liquidation of companies under the Advanced Corporate Accounting of 4th semester BCom. The class which I am going to take now is for the BCom course, the 4th semester BCom. The title of the paper is Advanced Corporate Accounting. The topics which I am going to cover during this particular session is meaning and types of liquidation and other theoretical aspects of liquidation of companies. Liquidation of companies, or it is also called winding up of the company, or it is also called dissolution of the company. Liquidation or winding up of the company means the termination or ending the legal existence of the company. That means it is nothing but the closing the business of the company permanently. That process is called liquidation of companies. And as per the Indian Companies Act of 1956 and the Indian Companies Act of 2013, the process whereby its life is ended and its properties is administered for the benefits of its creditors and members. Okay, that means as per the Indian Companies Act of 2013, the process of ending the life of the company whereby the properties are sold and the proceeds are distributed to the creditors and members. That process is called liquidation of the company. And in the process of liquidation, that is, in the process of liquidation of the company, the liquidator will sell all the assets, pay off all the liabilities, and surplus, if any, will be distributed among the members or among the shareholders of the company. That means the person called liquidator, he will sell all the assets of the company and properties of the company. Out of the amount received, first he will pay the amount of money to all the creditors of the company, including debenture holders, and the balance amount will be distributed among the shareholders or members of the company. That is about the meaning of liquidation of the company. Now, let us move to the types or modes of liquidation of company. Modes of liquidation of company or winding up of the company. That means the different types of liquidation of the company or different types of winding up of the company. Here, compulsory winding up or winding up by an order of the court. The first category is compulsory winding up. It is also called winding up by an order of the court. Then second category is voluntary winding up. It may takes in three different ways: members voluntary winding up, creditors voluntary winding up, and voluntary winding up under the supervision of the court. Now, let us go through the various types of liquidation of the companies or winding up of the companies one by one. First, compulsory winding up of the company or compulsory liquidation of the company. It can take place when the company is directed to be wound up by an order of the court. That means when the court orders for the winding up of the company or for the liquidation of the company, that is called compulsory liquidation of the company. The grounds for compulsory winding up are stated in the section 433 of Indian Companies Act. That means the circumstances under which the company is compulsorily winding up or compulsorily liquidated are stated in the section 433 of Indian Companies Act. Now let us see under what circumstances the court may order for compulsory liquidation of the company. If a company failed to submit statutory report to the Register of Companies on holding the statutory meeting of the company, that means after commencement or after incorporation of the company or after registration of the company, it is mandatory for every company to submit statutory report to the Register of Companies. If any company does not fulfill this requirement, this company will be liquidated compulsorily by the court. The second circumstance is if the number of members falls below 7 in case of public company or below 2 in case of a private company. Here we know the minimum number of members required for formation of a public company is 7 and for formation of a private company is 2. In case the minimum number of members falls below 7 in case of a public company or 2 in case of private company, automatically such companies will be liquidated compulsorily by the order of the court. And if the company is unable to pay its debts, that means when the company becomes insolvent, then automatically the company will be liquidated compulsorily. And if the company does not commence its business within a year from the date of its incorporation or suspends its business for the whole year, that means after registration of the company, if a company does not commence business within 1 year from the date of its registration or incorporation, or if any company closes or suspends its business for the 1 year or for the whole year, that type of companies will be liquidated compulsorily. That is about compulsory liquidation of the companies. Now let us move to voluntary winding up of the company. Okay, here voluntary winding up of the company is possible. That is, a company can be wound up or company can be liquidated voluntarily under the following circumstances. That means a company can be voluntarily wound up under the following circumstances, where the duration of the company fixed by the articles and the period has expired. That means if a company is formed for a fixed period of time, say for example for 10 years, 15 years, on completion of such a fixed period of time, the company will be liquidated or the company will be wound up voluntarily. And another situation where the articles provide for winding up on the occurrence of any event and a specified event has occurred. That means if in the articles of association, if it is specified that on the happening of any particular or specific event, the company will be liquidated. If that particular event or specific event happens, then the company will be liquidated voluntarily. Say for example, okay, if there is a war between India and Pakistan, the company will be liquidated. That is the condition stated in the articles of association. If the war begins between India and Pakistan, automatically the company will be liquidated. That is where the articles provide for winding up on the occurrence of an event and that specified event has occurred. So these are the circumstances under which the company will be liquidated voluntarily. And various modes or methods of liquidation of the company or voluntary liquidation of the company. Here the voluntary liquidation or voluntary winding up of the company can take place in 3 different ways. First, members voluntary winding up. Okay, at the time of winding up of the company, if the company is solvent company, in the sense that if a company is able to pay all its debts and directors makes a declaration to that effect, it is called members voluntary winding up of the company. That means if or on the event of or on the date of liquidation of the company, if the company is solvent and the directors of the company should declare that the company is solvent, at the time of liquidation of the company, then it is called members voluntary winding up. Then creditors voluntary winding up of the company. When a company is insolvent, that is, the company is not able to pay all the debts. In that case, the company must call for a meeting of its creditors for passing a resolution for winding up of the company. That means on the event of liquidation of the company or at the time of liquidation of the company, if the company is insolvent, that means if the company cannot pay its debts in full, then if the company takes a decision to wind up, then it has to call for a meeting of its creditors and pass a resolution for winding up of the company. That type of voluntary winding up is called creditors voluntary winding up. Then voluntary winding up under the supervision of the court. That is, sometimes either members of the company or creditors of the company may feel insecure, may have the fear that there may be some frauds, there may be some irregularities in the process of liquidation of the company, and in such cases, such members or creditors of the company may appeal the court for voluntary winding up of the company under its supervision. That type of voluntary winding up is called voluntary winding up under the supervision of the court. That is about the voluntary winding up of the company. Then in the previous slides, we learnt the meaning of liquidation of the company, the various types of liquidation of the company, and we learnt that liquidation is a legal process through which life of the company comes to an end. That means the lot of rules and regulations are there, lot of legal procedure is there for the winding up of the company. For completing that process of winding up of the company, a special person is appointed for completing the process of liquidation of the company. That person is called a liquidator. Such type of people are called liquidator. Therefore, a person or persons, sometimes a single person may be appointed as a liquidator, or two or more persons may be appointed as a liquidator. A person or persons appointed specially for conducting the proceedings of liquidation or winding up of the company is called liquidator or liquidators. Very simple. Any person or persons appointed for completing the proceedings of liquidation of the company called the liquidator or liquidators. Now let us see how the liquidator is appointed. In case of compulsory winding up, a liquidator is appointed by the court. That means, in case of compulsory winding up of the company, court passes an order for liquidation of the company. Even the liquidator also is appointed by the court only for completing the process of liquidation. In case of members voluntary winding up, the liquidator is appointed by the members at the general meeting. If the company is voluntarily wound up, or if the company is voluntarily winding up, then the liquidator is appointed by the members at the general meeting. Or if in case the creditors voluntary winding up, that means if the company is liquidated voluntarily by the creditors of the company, then both the creditors and members of the company nominate the liquidator in the representative or in the respective meeting. That means in case of voluntary winding up of the company by the creditors of the company, then the liquidator is appointed by both creditors and members in the meeting. Now let us see What are the important functions of liquidator in the process of liquidation of the company? The functions of liquidator are as follows. The primary function of liquidator is to realize all the assets of the company. That means he has to dispose or he has to sell all the assets of the company. Second one, he has to collect the money due from the contributories. Sometimes if any amount of money is due from the contributories, here the contributories are the persons who have agreed to contribute for the company. These people may include directors, managing directors and management of the company, promoters of the company and also shareholders of the company. He has to collect the amount of money due from the contributories. And third one, he has to distribute the amount realized from the sale of assets and amount received from the contributories in the order of priority. After selling the assets or after realizing the assets of the company, he has to distribute the amount among the contributories in the order of priority. That means there is an order of payment. As per order of payment only, you should make the payment. That we shall discuss later about the order of payment. Then he has to maintain and submit record of receipts and payment. That means he has to maintain the complete accounts of legal, or he has to maintain the complete accounts of the process of liquidation of the company. These are the important functions of liquidator. Now let us see what is the order of payment by the liquidator. That means the liquidator has to make the payment in the following order only. That means first he has to make the payment for the secured creditors. After making the payment for the secured creditors, he should make the payment for legal charges with respect to liquidation of the company and liquidation expenses incurred for completing the process of liquidation of the company, liquidator's remuneration, debenture holders, then preferential creditors, unsecured creditors, preference shareholders and equity shareholders, and this is the payment, or this is the order of payment the liquidator should follow at the time of distribution of amount among the contributories. Now we come across one important term, that is liquidator's remuneration. Here, in case of any type of liquidation, whether it is a compulsory liquidation, voluntary liquidation, the liquidator will have a lot of work to do for completing the process of liquidation of the company. So for his effort, for the work he is doing or for the work he will do in the process of completion of liquidation of the company, he has to be remunerated properly. He must be compensated properly. So any kind of remuneration or any kind of compensation paid by the company to the liquidator for completing the process of liquidation is called liquidator's remuneration. Any kind of remuneration, any kind of commission, any kind of compensation paid by the company to the liquidator for completing the process of liquidation of the company is called liquidator's remuneration. Usually it is calculated based on the percentage of assets realized and payments made by him. There are two ways to calculate the remuneration of the liquidator. One is as a percentage of assets realized. Say for example 3% on assets realized, 4% on assets realized, 5% on assets realized, like that, and payment made by him. He will make various payments and the remuneration may be calculated based on the percentage of amounts, percentage of payments made by him. Okay, that is about liquidator's remuneration. For calculation of liquidator's remuneration, we shall go through the liquidator's remuneration in detail in the preceding slides. Now, preferential creditors. We come across one important term, that is preferential creditors in the order of payment by the liquidator of the company. Okay. Under section 530 of the Companies Act of 1956, the following creditors are treated as preferential creditors. Here, the preferential creditors means, as per the section 530 of Indian Companies Act of 1956, these type of some creditors, they have preference over other unsecured creditors with respect to payment on the event of liquidation of the company. That means, first, these creditors are paid before payment to other unsecured creditors on the event of liquidation of the company. ಅಂದರೆ ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ತುಂಬ ಈಸಿ ಇದೆ. ಈ ಪ್ರಿಫರೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟರ್ಸ್ ಯಾರಪ್ಪ ಅಂದರೆ ಅವರು ಅನ್ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ as per the section 530 of Companies Act of 1956, ಅವರಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪ್ರಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಬೇರೆ ಅನ್ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಮೊದಲು ಇವರಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಫಾಲೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಐಟಮ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಟ್ರೀಟೆಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಪ್ರಿಫರೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟರ್ಸ್. All revenues, taxes, cesses and rates payable to the government or local authority will be treated as preferential creditor, provided that it must become due within 12 months before the date of winding up of the company. Very simple. Any amount of money that is due from the company to the government in the form of any type of tax, cess, that is treated as preferential creditors. 4 months salary and wages due to the employees of the company before the liquidation up to maximum of rupees 20,000 will be treated as preferential creditors. Okay. Then all accrued holiday remuneration payable to an employee due to the termination of his employment is treated as preferential creditors. Any amount of holiday remuneration paid by the company to the employee because of his termination from the company will be treated as a preferential creditor. Any sum payable by the company under the Employee State Insurance, that is ACA Act 1948, will be treated as preferential creditor, provided that it must become due within the 12 months before the date of winding up of the company. Then compensation payable as per the Workmen's Compensation Act, that is also preferential creditor. Any sum payable by the company to its employees from the Provident Fund, Pension Fund, Gratuity Fund or any other fund maintained for the welfare of employees. Okay. And any expenses of investigation held, that is also preferential creditors. These are the various items of unsecured creditors which are treated as unsecured creditors. Now, let us come to the most important aspect of liquidation of the company, especially for accounting process of liquidation of the company. In the accounting process of liquidation of the companies, few points are very important. Among them, the first and foremost important is liquidator's remuneration. Okay, the calculation of liquidator's remuneration. Liquidator's remuneration calculation method to be applied. Which method we have to apply? Where the remuneration is to be paid on the assets realized. As I already told you, first, liquidator's remuneration is paid as a percentage of assets realized. Okay, this is how the liquidator's remuneration on assets realized should be calculated. That is total value of assets realized into rate of commission divided by 100. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, the process is very simple. ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡೇಟರ್ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಅಸೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಎಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಸೇಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾನೆ ಅಂತ ನಮಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ದಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ಟೋಟಲ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಆಫ್ ಅಸೆಟ್ಸ್ ರಿಯಲೈಸ್ಡ್. ರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಇಂಟು ರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಡಿವೈಡೆಡ್ ಬೈ 100. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಹೌ ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ರೆಮ್ಯುನರೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡೇಟರ್ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಅಸೆಟ್ಸ್ ರಿಯಲೈಸ್ಡ್. ದೆನ್ another type of remuneration paid to the liquidator is as a percentage of payment made to the various debts. ಅವನು ಸುಮಾರು ಡೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಸುಮಾರು ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಈ ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾನಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜ್ ಅನ್ನು ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, For calculating remuneration and payment made to unsecured creditors, this is very, very important. In every question, there will be an item of calculation of liquidator's remuneration on the payment made to unsecured creditors. This is very, very, very important. Okay. And while calculating remuneration on the payment made to unsecured creditors, preferential creditor must be treated as a part of unsecured creditor. That means even preferential creditor is also unsecured creditor for calculation of remuneration. Then calculation of liquidator's remuneration as a percentage of amount distributed to unsecured creditors. Here, while calculating the liquidator's remuneration as a percentage of amount distributed to unsecured creditor, we may come across two situations. First, situation 1. When the company can pay full amount to unsecured creditors. Unsecured creditor ಗೆ ಅವರ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಡ್ಯೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಪೂರ್ತಿ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡಬಹುದು ಕಂಪನಿ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಂಪನಿ ಹತ್ರ ಅಷ್ಟು ಫಂಡ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ರೆ, if the company can pay full amount back to unsecured creditors, then this formula we should use to calculate the liquidator's remuneration. Amount of unsecured creditors into rate of commission divided by 100. That is, we should use this formula when the company is capable of paying full amount of money to all the unsecured creditors. Second situation is when the company cannot pay full amount to unsecured creditors due to insufficient funds. Okay, when the company will not be in a position to pay full amount of money to unsecured creditors ಗೆ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಕೊಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಆವಾಗ amount of money available to unsecured creditors into rate of commission divided by 100 plus rate of commission. This is the formula we should use to calculate the remuneration when the company cannot pay full amount of money to unsecured creditors. That is, amount available to unsecured creditors into rate of commission divided by 100 plus rate of commission. This is about the calculation of remuneration payable to the liquidator of the company. Okay. Now, practically, let us see how the amount of remuneration to the liquidator is calculated under situation 1. Let us see. The situation 1. Amount of unsecured creditor is 75,000. The amount available to unsecured creditor after all the payments but before unsecured creditors. ಅಂದ್ರೆ unsecured creditor ಗೆ ಮೊದಲು ಏನೇನು ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಎಲ್ಲ ಪೇ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಇಷ್ಟು ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಉಳಿದಿದೆ. That is amount available to unsecured creditor. See, creditor is 75,000, amount available is 95,000. Means we can pay full amount of 75,000 to unsecured creditor. Unsecured creditor ಗೆ ನಾವು ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡಬಹುದು. ಯಾಕಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟಾರ್ ಇರೋದು 75,000, ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಇರೋ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟು 95,000. And the liquidator is entitled for a commission of 3% on the amount distributed to unsecured creditor. Amount commission ಯಾಕೆ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ 3% of amount paid to unsecured creditors. ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಈ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಅನ್ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟರ್ಸ್ ಇಂಟು ರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ divided by 100. Okay, so commission will be 75,000 into 3% into 3 divided by 100 is equal to 2,250. This is how remuneration should be calculated when the company can pay full amount to all the unsecured creditors. Now let us see the situation 2. Situation 2. The amount of unsecured creditor 75,000. Amount of unsecured creditor is same, but amount available to unsecured creditor after payments or after all the payments but before payment to unsecured creditors is rupees 65,000. See, most important thing you should notice here is creditors amount to 75,000 ಇದೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಇರೋ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟು only 65,000. ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಇವರಿಗೆ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ವಿ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಪೇ ಫುಲ್ ಅಮೌಂಟ್. ಯಾಕಪ್ಪ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಅಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಫಂಡ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟಿದೆ? ಒಂದು 65,000 ಇದೆ. ಎಷ್ಟು ಕೊಡಬೇಕು? 75,000. ಪೂರ್ತಿ ವಾಪಸ್ ಕೊಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಇಯರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ 3%. Now let us see how the remuneration payable to the liquidator is calculated. So as I told you, this is the formula we should use to calculate liquidator's remuneration when the company cannot pay full amount of money to unsecured creditors. Amount available to unsecured creditors into rate of commission divided by 100 plus rate of commission. This formula we should use only when the company cannot pay full amount of money to unsecured creditors. So commission will be 65,000 into 3 divided by 100 plus 3, that is equal to 65,000 into 3 divided by 103 is equal to 1,893. This is how remuneration payable to liquidator should be calculated when the company cannot pay full amount of unsecured creditors. Okay, with this we come to the end of theoretical process of liquidation of the companies. Okay, and in the next slides or in the next sessions we shall discuss and work out the numerical problems on liquidation of companies. Thank you.